The road was dark and empty on my drive back home. The long stretch of black tarmac bathed in an orange glow of the overhead lights. I'd never driven down the motorway this late at night before, and I was surprised at how empty the road was. I looked ahead, down the long expanse of road. Emptiness. Just an almost infinite black abyss. It felt scary being so alone. I looked up at the rearview mirror, hoping to see another car to free me from the loneliness of the road. All there was a tiny pair of white dots, miles behind me, of some other soul driving down the motorway. I turned on the radio in the car for some tunes to drown out the bellowing silence. The only station I could get was the small town local radio, presented by some middle-aged guy who sounded bored and depressed by his job. I listened to the man talk for what felt like hours, but when I looked up at the clock on the dashboard, it had only been 10 long minutes. I turned off the radio and decided to return to the thundering silence within my small car. I decided to recheck the rearview mirror to see if I could spot the car behind me, to check if it was still there. When I noticed the other car, I perceived that it had started to catch up with me. The sight of the other vehicle calmed me down. The thought that I wasn't alone on the oddly empty road calmed my over-imaginative mind. Then, I heard a noise crackle through the speakers. It sounded like static, but I could recognise something that sounded like a voice. I assumed it was just the radio in the car was picking up a distant station, too far away to get a good enough signal. Then a chill ran down my spine when I recognised that I had turned off the radio. The voice faded away from the speakers, and I assumed that it was just my imagination running away with me. Then the voice returned, much louder than before, booming around what felt like the inside of my head, causing me to swerve. If the road wasn't empty, I would have almost certainly hit someone. My heart was pounding. I was shocked and startled from the ear-splitting loud voice. I was able to get the car back into the right lane, and the voice coming from the speakers quietened down to a more manageable level. I wasn't able to tell what the voice was saying until it sputtered out,
GF34 VFS.
It was my licence plate. I started to panic. Was it a prank from some radio station? Had I interrupted some police signal? Or worse? That's when it literally hit me. I hadn't noticed that the vehicle that was behind me had been getting closer and closer to the back of my car. And then it hit me again. This time more violently than before. I swerved along the road, trying to regain the control of the car. I had now seen that the vehicle behind me was a lorry. I got control of my car and slammed my foot down on the accelerator pedal. The voice from the speaker kept speaking, spewing out random facts about my life, like my date of birth,
9th of January 1977.
my dominant hand.
Left.
Every little piece of information about my life I heard repeated back to me by the strange voice. The lorry behind me slammed into the back of my car again. I tried to get away, but my little suburban car couldn't accelerate quickly enough. The voice from the speakers began to laugh with what felt like malicious intent. The lorry hit me again, this time flipping my car. My car rolled down the vacant road. The last thing I remember is the car landing on its roof. I looked out the window of the now incredibly battered car, seeing that the lorry that had chased me stopped. A shadowy figure climbed out and started to walk towards me. Then I blacked out. I awoke in a hospital the next day. My wife was sat next to my bed. The police were curious about what had happened the night before. I explained to the police officer my experience, and he looked at me confused. They showed me the footage from the roadside cameras of the night before. The lorry wasn't there. The footage showed my car driving down the road. It showed every little swerve that my car took. Somehow they found a camera which showed my crash, but at no stage could I ever see the lorry on my mysterious empty road. The police accused me of driving under the influence, but they had no real evidence for that. Nevertheless, my driver licence was suspended. It's been a few months since then, and I always think back to the night. What was the voice? What was the lorry, and why did it happen? Now, every time I hear the radio, that voice whispers to me again.